aspects of ourselves that we have suppressed because we were taught for one reason or another that they were burdensome or useless or would get us cast out, okay? But these aspects of ourself are our gifts. What is up, my loves? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. If you have never seen my face before, you've never heard my voice before, my name is Isa, and we're going to be talking about the shadow today. I love this topic, okay? I have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel talking about shadow work and the shadow, and it's something that I want to dive deeper and deeper into. It's something I have explored much along my own healing journey, and I genuinely, honestly, truly believe that if everyone was doing shadow work, the world would be a much better, much happier, more peaceful place. Okay, that's just my humble opinion. I think this kind of work is very, very important. So let's get into two different aspects of the shadow that I have recently not discovered, but I finally found like the language for what I was trying to differentiate in my mind. Let me explain. So the shadow, for those of you who don't know, and I'll leave videos down below, I have a couple videos talking about like the basics of what shadow work is and what the shadow is, but just to a little recap, okay? The shadow is essentially everything that has been buried in your unconscious mind. It's buried deep in your unconscious mind for one reason or another. Most likely this happened in childhood where you suppressed parts of yourself, aspects of your personality, gifts that you had, etc., as a means to survive, because society, the people that were raising you, the people that you grew up around, taught you that that isn't good. Don't do that thing. Don't be that way, right? And so you buried that, tucked it away, but it is still an aspect of who you are. And shadow work is the process of kind of excavating those shadows, all that you have suppressed, so that you can integrate them in a healthy and mindful way. So I recently heard the term golden shadow, okay? And this just like when I heard this, everything just clicked into place. I did not coin this term. This term, I don't know if it was coined by her either, but I heard it from Sabrina Lynn, who runs the Rewilding podcast, who I love so much. Again, I don't know if she was the one who coined this term or not, but that's where I heard it from. So there's the golden shadow and the dark shadow. And like I said, when I heard this, everything just kind of clicked into place, because language is a beautiful thing that can simplify things and make things so much easier to understand. So I want to talk about what the golden shadow is as opposed to the dark shadow, what they are, why they're both valuable, a few examples of each, and what do you even do with them. So dark shadows, I think this is what people typically think of when they think of shadow work and the shadow. These are traits that can be harmful. These are traits that can hurt ourselves, that can hurt others, that we've suppressed either because they're not healthy, because they are harmful, or because they were deemed unacceptable in society and are deemed unacceptable in society. But that doesn't mean that you want to leave them in your unconscious. That doesn't mean that you don't want to excavate these things. Dark shadows are important to become aware of, because having an awareness of them, this is why you bring things from the unconscious to the conscious mind. When you bring them to your consciousness, you make sure that you are not unconsciously dictated by them. Just because you hide something away doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't mean that you aren't acting on it. If you are unconscious of something, you are going to act on it unconsciously, because you are not aware of why you are acting the way that you are, because you haven't done the inner work to uncover those things. Now, we all have the capacity to be cruel, to be unkind, to be violent, even. We all have this capacity. And for some people, those aspects of self dictate their life because they're not aware of where their behavior is even coming from. This is why it's like near impossible for people like narcissists to ever truly see themselves, because they lack the ability to even recognize their own capacity for doing harm. They aren't aware of their own dark shadows. And I'm not a psychologist, so maybe it's a lack of awareness, or they are aware of it and it's just not computing, or they don't care. I don't know. Not a psychologist, but someone who isn't willing or able to look at their own shadows is going to act on them unconsciously. So deeply suppressed rage, cruelty, insecurity, deep rooted shame, these things may come out explosively and suddenly, again, because when it finally bubbles up, this person didn't have any of the awareness to even catch it before it happens, right? If you have an awareness, yeah, I have a really fucked up temper and it can lead me to do really fucked up things, and it's very deep rooted. If you have that awareness, when you're in an argument with someone or something triggers you, you can recognize, because you are conscious of it. You have brought it from the shadows into the light. You can choose to move differently. You can choose to respond to that part of yourself in a way that doesn't actually repeat those same cycles of harm, right? You can respond differently because you have the awareness. So aggression, deep-rooted shame, things that cause self-harm or self-sabotage or the abuse of others, right? People who are abusive, they are acting on a shadow that they likely don't even know is there. Something within them feels deeply insecure, deeply unworthy, and so they are harming other people, trying to control other people in order to compensate for that, and they don't even know that that's why they're acting the way that they are. They might not even recognize that what they're doing is wrong because their shadow is so deeply buried, right? So that is a very obvious example of the dark shadow. And of course, these things can lend itself to even more harmful, catastrophic things, especially when someone is in a position of power. I believe that every fucking man in politics needs to do shadow work, okay? Thank you so much. Now, golden shadows, on the other hand, are aspects of ourself that we have suppressed because we were taught for one reason or another that they were burdensome or useless or would get us cast out, okay? But these aspects of ourself are our gifts. They are our magic, and uncovering these golden shadows can allow us to more deeply embrace our purpose in the world, the value that we bring to ourselves and to others. A few examples are being deeply sensitive, your innate sensual and sexual nature, being really outspoken, being highly in touch with your willpower, your creativity. These are all things that I think, especially people who are empaths, people who are healers, have to at some point reconcile with. We have to do this kind of excavation and bring these shadows into the light so that we can uncover our purpose, so that we can be of service to our highest self and to others, right? So sensitivity, being emotional, this is something that is often shamed. I feel like so many of us, whether we know it or not, so many of us have experienced growing up in a household where being emotional, being sensitive, crying was like immediately shut down. This is a big one for me. I have a hard time expressing my emotions. I have a hard time sharing my emotions. I hate crying in front of people, even like my close friends. I have a habit of like apologizing afterwards because I'm like, ew, ew. I'm so sorry. That wasn't me. And that's something that I have to actively work through because that's coming from a place of shame. It's coming from having that aspect of myself be buried away and hidden away for so long as a means to not be a burden, as a means to be accepted by my family, be accepted by my peers, right? Your sensual, sexual nature. This is something that I think a lot of women in particular have buried away in the shadows in their unconscious. And it's why a lot of women, men and women, shame others when they see someone expressing that aspect of themselves. This is why so many people see sex work as such a taboo, dirty, grimy thing. This is why so many of us have shame around our desires and our self-expression in this way, because this has been suppressed and oppressed in society for a very long time. So again, this is a very common shadow, as well as, like I said, being outspoken, highly in touch with your willpower. Most people don't like people who are going to shake the table, who are going to stir the pot. People don't like that, because as much as we want freedom as humans, it's also kind of scary when someone is speaking out for what is right or calling things out, you know, like that one person, that one kid who is always questioning the teacher and like getting sent to the principal's office because they can't shut the fuck up and just keep their head down and do what they're supposed to do, right? Right. So, that is also something that can be suppressed within yourself. Your ability to advocate for what is right, to seek the truth, to speak out against it. Also, your creativity. This is maybe not as common, but because we live in this capitalist society, being a creative person is kind of, it's deemed as useless. It's deemed as, you know, you need to get a real job, right? That's what a lot of creative people hear from their family. And so being creative is something that I think a lot of us bury deep within our subconscious, because we have a fear of failure. We have a fear of not being taken seriously. We have a fear of being cast out. We have a fear of ending up on the streets. Like this is one that also runs deep. There are so many more aspects of the golden shadow, different qualities, and this is going to be different depending on how you were raised, how you were brought up. The dark shadows that you have and the golden shadows that you have are going to be different depending on what your life experience has been and the kind of people that you were surrounded by growing up. So what do you do with these shadows once you uncover them? Now, with dark shadows, your awareness of them is the most important thing. When I talk about integrating the shadow, if you are integrating a dark shadow, it's not about embodying that quality, right? You don't want to embody your rage and your capacity for cruelty or unkindness or harm. So allow your dark shadows to act as a guide to being more mindful of your capacity for these things, your capacity to be this way or that way. And on a deeper layer, what part of you needs more love in that moment? If that shadow stems from deep fear or insecurity, which it likely does, right? Deep-rooted rage, aggression, and anger is usually linked to some kind of feeling of deep sadness or unworthiness or fear of abandonment. So you don't want to, beat that shadow into submission so that you don't act on it. You don't want to shame yourself further. You want to just recognize where the shit is coming from, what it is, and sit with that aspect of yourself until you get to a place where you can move differently. You can act differently. Now, with the golden shadows, think of these as like glimmers in the dark that you want to follow, okay? Recognize when you are suppressing your gifts, and when you have the awareness of the way you are perpetuating the suppression of your own shadows, you can recognize, for example, let's say you have this urge to take a heels dance class or a pole dancing class, or you just want to dress a certain way, or you want to have casual sex and that's not something that you've ever done before, or you want to try something out with your partner that you've never done before and it might be a little taboo. When you are in that space of uncovering the desires that you have, the things that you want to try and express, notice that voice of shame. Notice the aspect of you that is trying to like push that down and deny yourself that exploration, and challenge yourself to move in the opposite direction. Try to move towards exploring that shadow, exploring that aspect of yourself instead of away from it. And do it in a way that you feel comfortable with. Don't just dive head first into it unless that's just how you operate. Same with your creativity, or speaking up, honoring your willpower, things like that. When you get the urge, when you kind of you feel that desire, that light come into play, that shadow come into the light rather, follow it. Go towards it. Do not lean away from it. You want to honor it as much as possible. That is how you integrate the golden shadow, is just having an awareness of what those things are, what those aspects of yourself are that want to be expressed, noticing when they want to be expressed, how they want to be expressed, and pushing yourself to honor that. Allow them to guide you into how you can step more deeply into yourself and your purpose. Now, if you are listening to this and you're like, okay, well, how do I even know? If it's in my unconscious, it's not in your subconscious, it's in your unconscious, right? So how do you even become aware of something that you're not aware of? I would say pay attention to your triggers. I think that once you even open the door to, okay, I want to uncover what my shadows are. I want to uncover my dark shadows so that I can be more mindful of when I'm being a shithead and why. And I want to uncover my golden shadow so that I can start to embrace my gifts. I think once you even just open the door to having that awareness and seeking that awareness, they will reveal themselves to you. It's kind of like if someone says, I want you to look for like a yellow car, and maybe you never see yellow cars because who the fuck has yellow cars these days, right? But then now that you have this awareness, you'll probably see one or two. They will reveal themselves to you and your consciousness because you are opening the door to what you were previously unconscious of. So don't go digging. Don't force them to come up, but allow them to reveal themselves to you through your triggers, through conversations, through the desires that you have, whether they're positive or negative, through meditation, through journaling. You can carve out time if you want to sit with yourself when you are triggered, when there is something that you can feel that there's a resistance within you. There's something that has come up that you are pushing away. You can carve out time to sit with that, journal on it, meditate on it, and it might reveal itself to you through that way, through you being intentional and actively trying to uncover what that thing is, or it might just flash into your consciousness and you have to just follow that thread. And I think with shadow work, whatever is meant to be revealed to you, whatever is meant to be brought into your consciousness, when you are ready, it will. So with all that being said, I really hope that this was helpful. I hope that if you are new to shadow work, this inspires you to open yourself to it. Or if you've been doing shadow work for a while, I hope it sparks something in you to maybe continue doing that work. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Much love. Be well, be healthy, be mindful, all the things. And I will talk to you next week. Oh, and Happy New Year. I forgot that was a thing. It's almost 2024. Probably be 2024 when I upload this. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.